When I first married my husband, I was ready to embrace the role of a stepmother with an open heart. His son, Jake, was a bright 13-year-old, but he carried a heaviness in his eyes I couldn't ignore. At first, I thought it was just the typical teenage angst. But it soon became clear that Jake was struggling deeply with school, trust, and his sense of safety. What I didn't know then was that the roots of Jake's pain lay in a secret that tore our family apart: my husband's infidelity. About a year before we got together, my husband had an affair that his ex-wife Jake's mother never fully got over. The emotional fallout had fractured their co-parenting relationship, leaving Jake caught in the middle. He'd overheard arguments, sensed the tension, and felt abandoned by the very people he was supposed to rely on. When I discovered the truth, accidentally finding messages on my husband's phone, it shattered me. I wasn't just the wife. I was stepping into a fractured family still haunted by betrayal. My husband's guilt was heavy, and Jake's mistrust of adults ran deep. Helping Jake wasn't about quick fixes. It was about slowly rebuilding trust. I sat with him, sharing parts of my own vulnerabilities, letting him know he wasn't alone. I encouraged him to open up about his feelings, even the anger toward his dad and me. Therapy became our safe space. I worked to show Jake that loyalty didn't mean denying pain, but facing it together. The hardest moments came when Jake confronted his dad about the affair. Watching them navigate that raw honesty, I realized healing demanded transparency. My husband committed to being fully present, no more secrets, and that helped Jake start letting go of his bitterness. Over time, Jake's resilience amazed me. He moved from a place of confusion and hurt to a tentative hope. Helping him wasn't just about solving his struggles, but helping our family face the messy, complicated truth and come out stronger. At first, Jake's struggles were subtle: mood swings, withdrawn behavior, and slipping grades. But beneath the surface, his pain was a storm. I often caught him staring out the window, eyes distant, as if replaying scenes only he could see. I knew something was wrong, but no amount of gentle questioning made him open up. He was guarded, like a fortress built from years of broken trust. The truth about my husband's infidelity hit me like a tidal wave. I never expected to uncover it so early in our relationship, and yet it explained so much. The tension between him and his ex, the coldness Jake sometimes showed toward his dad, and the silent barrier Jake had around me. I realized that no matter how much I wanted to be a supportive stepmother, the wounds of the past weren't mine alone to heal. They belonged to Jake and to my husband, who carried his own burden of guilt and regret. The hardest part was watching Jake grapple with his feelings for his father. How do you love someone who has broken your world? Jake's confusion manifested as anger, sometimes toward me, sometimes toward his dad. One evening, after a particularly tense dinner, he exploded in frustration. "Why should I even try? Dad hurt Mom and us. How can I believe anything he says?" His words stung. My husband looked down, silent. I realized then that healing wouldn't come from pretending the past didn't exist. It would require facing it head on, with honesty and vulnerability. That night, I sat down with my husband and told him we needed to be fully transparent, for Jake's sake and for ours. We agreed to seek family therapy, something neither of us had wanted at first, but both of us knew was necessary. The therapy sessions were raw. Jake was skeptical at first, barely speaking. My husband admitted his mistakes openly, without excuses. I shared how I felt caught between the role of a wife and a stepmother, unsure how to bridge the distance growing between Jake and me. Slowly, walls began to crumble. Jake started to talk about how betrayed he felt, about his fear that love meant pain, and about the loneliness of feeling caught between two worlds. He admitted he sometimes blamed me for taking his dad away, a painful admission that shattered me. But I held my ground, telling him I was here to support him, not replace anyone. Over time, Jake's trust grew, not overnight, but in moments. A shared laugh during a game, a quiet walk after dinner, or a simple text message from me checking in. He began to see that while his family was broken, it wasn't beyond repair. My husband also changed. His guilt turned into responsibility. He became more present, showing up not just physically, but emotionally. He attended Jake's school events, helped with homework, and most importantly, listened without defensiveness. One breakthrough came unexpectedly. Jake had been wrestling with depression, something none of us fully realized until he finally opened up during therapy. The infidelity wasn't just a story from the past. It had shaped his identity and affected his mental health. Understanding that helped us all shift from blame to healing. We created new rituals to build family connection. A weekend hike, movie nights, even cooking dinner together. Slowly, Jake began to associate our home not with betrayal, but with safety and love. Yet, the journey wasn't without setbacks. There were days when Jake withdrew again, when the past shadows felt too heavy. I remember one afternoon when he slammed his bedroom door, telling me he hated the fake family we were trying to force. It was painful, but also real. In those moments, I reminded myself that healing isn't linear. Trust takes time, and pain doesn't vanish with words alone. The most profound lesson I learned was about emotional attachment, how deeply it shapes us, for better or worse. Jake's attachment to his father was complicated by betrayal, but it was still there, a thread we had to honor, not sever. As Jake moved toward healing, our family's story became one not just of infidelity and struggle, but of resilience and hope. One evening, months into therapy, Jake surprised us both. He sat down with my husband and said, "I'm not okay with what happened, but I'm trying to forgive you, and I want to try being a family." That moment was a turning point, not a perfect resolution, but a beginning. Helping Jake overcome his struggles taught me that love is messy, complicated, and sometimes painful, but it's also powerful. It can mend wounds when we face truth bravely and choose connection over resentment. Now, looking back, I'm proud of how far we've come. Jake is still growing, still healing, but the weight he carried has lightened. Our family isn't perfect. There are scars we carry, but there's also a new foundation built on honesty and commitment. If you're facing similar struggles, I hope our story shows that even in the darkest moments, healing is possible. It takes patience, courage, and a willingness to confront painful truths. But most importantly, it requires love, the kind that chooses to stay, to listen, and to rebuild, piece by piece.